friends. Shug Bury here with Women's Hot Topics. You guys, there are some hot topics I don't want to talk about. There's some hot topics that are just too sensitive or too close to home or too painful to talk about. But today we're going to talk about a topic that all of us have to listen to. And not only will it help you, it will help your kids, it will help anybody else. I mean, have you guys ever had an issue where you're at dinner? Oh, I'm going to have one more glass of wine. Or maybe you're at a party. Oh, I'm fine. I had a big meal and we're just having a good time. Or maybe it's your kids. Maybe your kids are out partying and they don't really realize what their limits are. Well, today we're going to talk about a sensitive topic about drinking, driving, and what can happen when you do. Worst case scenario. And I have a fabulous guest on with me today, and I'm going to share a little bit about her with you. I was in Rochester, Minnesota, alone. I decided to go to church that morning, and it was a big civic center at the Mayo Clinic the church was held at. And I'm trying to find a spot to sit. And it was, of course, I came a minute too late. Church had already started. And most of the seats were already taken. And so I'm walking toward the front. And all of a sudden I decide I'm just going to sit in the very front row. So I sit in the very front row and I start to worship and listen. And all of a sudden I hear this. Shug from Shakopee Prison. And I turn around and here is our guest, Sondra deWerd. She is sitting behind me. I baptized her inside of prison. I had an opportunity to meet her there. She would come to our church services, and I couldn't wait till church was over so I could go and I could talk to her and I could hear what her story was. Well, she shared her story with me in the lobby. I thought, you know what, we got to get this on the radio show and we got to talk about it, friends. And it's important to us, whether you drink, whether you don't drink, but if you're out driving a car, you need to pay attention to this. You need to listen. Sondra deWerd, welcome to our Women's Hot Topics today.
Thank you.
Sondra, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
I am 37. I have two little kids. I have a salon in my home. I just moved it to my house so I can be home for my son when he gets home from school. We built a house. We have a great life today. I have a lot of family in town, so we get together with them, and everything is turning out just the way God intended.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And isn't it amazing, after such a tragedy, after such a difficulty, God is blessing you at this time. We're going to get to that in a minute, friends, but I want you to hear the story. I want you to hear what happened. First of all, Sondra, share what your life was like before the car accident.
Yeah, I was 23 when I got in the car accident. So at that time, I had graduated dental assisting school, worked as that for a little bit, kind of felt like a failure because I hated it, and moved back home to Rochester. Then went to hair school, graduated with that within 10 months, and loved that. So that was good. But of course, at 23, I was drinking and going out with girlfriends and whatever a 23-year-old does. So working, but not seriously, I would say. I didn't feel like I was in my career mode.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a lot of hanging out with friends at 23. So yes, I had a job. Yes, at the time of my accident, I was living in Mankato. Because when I graduated hair school, I just applied anywhere. I kind of drove around and applied everywhere. And the first person that called me back, that's where I worked. So
good. Well, tell me a little bit about what happened that night.
I just finished work, like I said, in Mankato. And so my girlfriend, who is a nurse anesthetist at the Mayo Clinic, she asked if I would come and go to Thursdays on First, which is a kind of a food festival with vendors and people sell things, and it's pretty fun. It's every Thursday night in the summer. And then after we went there, then we went bar hopping, and we did have a sober ride. Her boyfriend, now husband, did pick us up from the bar, but of course, with very low inhibitions, I thought I was fine. And I think he thought I was fine too, because he wasn't with us, so he didn't know how much I had drank, I mean, how would he, I guess. So I asked him if he would drop me off at my car, which was in a parking ramp near the bar that we were at. He did, and I didn't make it 8 miles outside of Rochester before there was a head-on collision on Highway 14.
So tell us what you remember about that accident.
I don't remember anything. I did end up having to take a Norgard plea, which is a plea deal that says you have no recollection. And that's not because of being drunk. That is because I had a lot of bleeding in my brain. And I mean, I don't remember even, I still to this day don't remember anything. And it's been 14 years. So um, I just woke up hearing that I killed people. And then you just have to deal with those consequences.
Yeah, yeah. How many people died?
Too. We were
Two.
all around the same age. Um, I was 23. I believe they were between 18 and 21.
Were they both in your car?
Nope, I didn't have anybody in my car. Um, in the other vehicle, there were 3 young men, and 2 died, and 1 was severely injured. So
I'm
the
so
one that
sorry.
survived and myself, we both ended up getting airlifted by the Mail One helicopter.
And did you say that they have video of what was it, the jaws of life and airlifting you out?
Yeah, I have video footage for whatever reason of the moment the cop got the call on his radio. He was sitting in a parking lot, and all of a sudden he just starts driving so fast, and he's for I think it was like 8 minutes, or I don't know, 9 minutes, something like that. He's just speeding, and then all of a sudden he almost hits me because he didn't know exactly where I was, and he whips his car around, and then his vehicle is facing me, and I don't know if there's like a cop car camera or if it was actually on him, but you can hear me screaming in the vehicle, and I'm trying to get out. I'm banging on the windows, but the car had completely crushed my lower half, and it was no windows, everything was shattered. And then he just kept saying, "Ma'am, you need to calm down. You can't get out of the vehicle. You need to calm down." And that went on until all of the other people got there, and that was like, I think, 3 different fire departments, um, EMTs, police officers. There were so many people. It was fascinating to watch because the amount of people that were involved, or, it's like the ripple effect of how many people you impact them.
Mhm. All the first
Like,
line rescuers. Absolutely. And so after the accident, you were brought to the hospital. How long were you in the hospital?
I was in the ICU for, I don't know, it wasn't that long, a couple weeks, and then I had to go live in a nursing home for a while because my brain was not sending signals to my body to like go to the bathroom or sit up in bed or anything like that. So
That's terrible. That's terrible. And I'm assuming at one point along the line, then you were arrested. Tell us about that.
I got arrested. It took a year for me. I went to court dates throughout that full year, and I wasn't a flight risk, meaning I don't have a criminal record, and they weren't scared that I was gonna like go to Mexico and or wherever, to try to get away. And um, so I was put on a breathalyzer machine, and I had to blow into that 3 times a day. And that was a way. I was bedridden anyway. I had a lot of injuries in my lower half, and so they just thought, well, since she's in a nursing home, she's probably not going to go very far. And so then the last date, I believe, was in July. And that's when I got sentenced to 6 years in prison. And then they arrested me right there and took, and I had a shaved head still from, because I had a lot of, I was in a wheelchair still, and I had a shaved head from, they had to put, I always call it a bolt. That's my non-medical way of saying it. But, to really, I had a lot of bleeding in my brain. So they had to relieve the pressure and open up my skull, I would imagine. Um, and then I didn't walk for 4 years. So I went to prison with 2 casts on my legs. And ironically, I left prison with still one of my ankles was still broken because I never got any follow-up x-rays. And so when I was pregnant with my daughter, which is the second child, I was in so much pain because I was gaining weight, which obviously was putting pressure on that bone. And I said, gosh, can I get a x-ray while I'm pregnant? And the doctor's like, yeah, that's fine. So I got an x-ray, and sure enough, it was broken all the way across my ankle. So for 10 years I was,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
So now you're incarcerated. You got a bolt in your head. Both legs are broken. Tell us what prison was like.
Yeah, prison's not friendly. I do have to say it's better than jail. It's
And tell us the
clean for the
difference. Tell us the difference for our
so
listeners.
jail, I thought I was going to die. Jail was so disgusting. There's first you get issued the state clothing, and it's like all very used, and like the underwear are very stretched out, and they make sure that they are colored brown because you know what stains are probably on there. And sure, they're washed, but it's just, you know, you go from living your life being able to purchase brand new underwear, and you're like, oh, okay. And the shower was disgusting, people's hair, and I mean, people just don't live the same way as you live, you know. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to survive this. This is a lot. And even so, in jail, there's always new people coming in, and generally they're drunk or high or under some sort of influence, or they're mad. Where like prison doesn't really have that. You know, people are generally withdrawn. You know, they get to, I don't know what you call that, like when you come down from your drug, or you're not drunk when you go to prison because you've already detoxed in jail. So I would say people are less scary in prison because they're sort of in their right mind, you know. I would always tell my parents, I'm like, sure, they've murdered people, but they probably murdered people high on something. And the way I know them, they're not under any influence. So they're quite nice, actually, you know, I mean, they're just a totally different person. So anyway,
Yeah.
jail, I would say, is very raw and not not pleasant at all. A lot of
Yes.
different emotions going on there. And then you get to prison and there's a lot more structure. There's a lot more to do. There's church services, there's the courtyard that you can walk around in, there's a gym. I mean, you can have a normal life within those walls if you choose to.
Mhm.
I mean, normal as far as a prison goes anyway.
Yeah, there are the challenges, as I know, you know, you guys, we have Him for Her Ministries, HIM number 4, Her Ministries. And we've been doing this for over 20 years, went in and preached. And I tell you, some of the things I've seen in prison, jail and prison, yes, are completely different. You got people off the streets in jail, and then in prison, they've had a little bit of time, and now they're serving their time. And you see two types of people. You see a person who wants to turn their life around and make the best of it and do a lot of programming. And then you see the person who's just trying to get sharper. So when she gets out, she can take more people with her. And, you know, and that's common. I'm not surprised. I used to tell my husband, it's like high school times 1,000. You know, you got to be careful not to get your back stabbed, like literally not with a knife, but so much mentally. And there's just a lot of challenges inside of prison that people deal with, and it's difficult, and it's prison for a reason. But you guys, I am all for, if you've done your time, you know, if you've done the crime, do your time. I'm all for that. But once you get ready to get out, we are going to be there to help mentor you and help you get a leg up and a fresh start in society. You know, the rate of return is too high, and we need to make sure that we're helping these women inside and out of prison. Himforher.org. Please go check it out. We need mentors, we need funding, we need help. Sondra, did I describe that pretty accurately?
You did. That was a great description.
Yeah, that's
I
just
had visits every week, and it was pretty sad. It was the exact same, I'll say 50 people in the visiting room every single week. And there's 700-ish people in prison. And I can't imagine if I didn't have the support that I had. That's part of the reason I'm successful. You know, if there's, I mean, you're at the lowest of the low, you have no hope. And if people in prison, I'll just tell you, are also telling you how crappy you are. It's not like the guards are uplifting. They're not very nice to you. So you need that source outside of there to remind you this is just a season. You're gonna get out. This doesn't have to be your life. You don't need to live here forever. So just do what you have to do and get the heck out, you know?
yeah, yeah. 95% of all those people incarcerated will be released. And a lot of families are done with them. Like, you've offended so many times. I'm done with you. I'm walking away. And this is where a mentorship program comes in. I mean, they have someone who comes alongside them. There's a gal in our program who I'm so proud of. And she met me at church and she was baptized and she heard about our mentorship program in prison. And so she decided to join it. And since then, now she's been reunited with her mom and dad. Before they were done with her, and they're like, and I don't blame them. They lift up their hands. How many times are you going to reoffend? How many times are you going to do this? But there is restoration and there is hope. And you've been there and you described a little bit about what it's like, but what did you learn most from prison?
I think my main, I don't know how to word it, but I think that I was maybe raised in a way that people in prison were bad people. And I think it opened my eyes that we are all the same and we all have stuff, and you're one choice away from being in prison yourself.
Yeah.
Half of those people are not bad. I mean, more than half, honestly. They've just made a bad decision, or they were raised so poorly that they didn't have a chance coming out of the womb to even know better. So it's actually quite a sad place. And I guess it just opened my heart to not judge people on things like that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
who have been incarcerated. It's very generational, friends. It's not unusual to have a mom and daughter in prison, or to have a mom with 3 children and all 3 baby daddies are in prison. And, this is just a cyclical thing and generational, and we need to stop it. And we can make an impact and we can make a difference. And so please, please come find us, Him for Her Ministries, and help us. Give them a leg up, a fresh start after they've done their time. According to the judge, they've done their time. So it's up to us as a society to welcome them in. Okay, so if you would share with me, how can we best help those who have served their time as they leave prison with a fresh start? What do you see as is something that we all need to do?
I've heard that jobs are horrible because they might get hired, but then once they do the background check, then they get canned because they are felons. And not all of us can get our felonies expunged, or our crimes expunged. Since mine were against a person, then I wasn't allowed to go to boot camp, and boot camp is an opportunity for people to get out of prison early, and it's a very hard program, and it's they get put on ISR, and it's intense, but also it's only for people that may have drug charges or charges that are not against another person. But I guess mainly, minus the job thing, is when I got out of prison, I got out on good behavior. Okay, pat on the back. But I was released to the women's shelter. And that is the only facility in Rochester for women that they allow women that are incarcerated to go to for work release. And I know in the cities, they have many, many different locations that are designed specifically for people getting out of prison. And I can just say it felt very messy. There were kids running around. It was dirty. You have to share a room with somebody that is maybe straight off the street, I mean, and who knows what their life was like 5 minutes ago before they came here, where at least if you're coming from prison and you're still technically under the law, then you aren't going to be on drugs and you aren't going to be drinking. And it felt uncomfortable, and it almost made getting out seem not like it was a privilege. It felt almost like more punishment, because now how am I going to navigate this? And I wasn't allowed a cell phone. Well, in that time, it was 2016, and nobody has landlines. So I didn't know how to get a job thankfully, I already had a job lined up, and being a hairstylist, you can be a felon. That's not an issue. But I know a lot of people, if say you want to go work at some nice place, and then you're like, yeah, but I don't have a phone. So you have to call the women's shelter to get a hold of me if you want to hire me. Right there, no one would call you. It would be a done deal. So maybe things have changed regarding the phone. I'm not sure since 2016. I sure hope so. But
Yeah.
I don't think there is a facility still to this day that they can get released to besides the women
In Rochester. And
in Rochester. Yes.
there's a lot of men's facilities throughout the whole Twin Cities,
Mhm.
Minnesota, plus the United States. Men's facilities are much more prolific than women's. We forget about the women, which I wish we wouldn't. That's why we do Him for Her Ministries, is for women. But
Yeah.
also, the programming and to help them and give them a leg up. And that's what our program does. We have scholarships for women who want to maybe go to cosmetology school or go back to school or further their education. It's not uncommon for them in prison to get their high school diploma. So we help them and encourage them in prison to do that as well. There's just so many benefits that they can use having a mentor to come alongside them because they didn't know how to live their life before that. Like, how do I go from dealing drugs and making a ton of money to flipping burgers? It's tough in that. Or we help them get lined up with a job where I've gone in personally and talked to the employers and they said, oh yeah, we'd love to hire her. And I vouched for her and she goes in and she works for a month or 2 months. And then their insurance all of a sudden does a background check and they fire her. And she was a wonderful employee. What does that do to a person? I mean, really, people, we're in America. I mean, yes, they did their time, but it's time when they get out that we give them a fresh start as well. Okay, I'm going to get off my high horse on that, Sondra. I want to turn it back to you for a minute. So
I agree with you.
we talked about how we can help others and give them a fresh start. Where, I think the first comment that somebody might have is in this traumatic, terrible event. And I want to be sensitive to it, sensitive to the victims, sensitive to you. Just the worst scenario. How do you get past the guilt and fall into forgiveness of God? How did you do that?
Well, to be honest, in the beginning, I didn't want any of that. I wanted to die. No different. I felt so angry that they got to die and I got to live. And it was that part of it. I mean, that part was one of the longest journeys. I tried to overdose many times when I was with my injuries because I had oxy pills, but little did I know, not being a drug addict or a drug dealer, I took all of them and they were only 5 milligrams. So I basically just fell asleep.
No, I want to pause for a minute. You said, I would rather have been them who died than to have lived. Explain what that means for our listeners.
Um, I didn't know how I didn't know how I could live knowing what I did.
It was too painful. Mm-hmm. Mm.
I didn't know how I could celebrate life or even get to where I am today, like with kids, and have my kids be normal, healthy, fun little kids and know that I took that away from other moms and dads.
I'm sorry. And I can't imagine the pain and suffering that you had from that. Thank you for explaining that to us. How did God comfort you and how did you get through it with the Lord? I know that you're a believer.
I am. Since I had time, I decided, well, I'm here and I'm not dead, so I should just do every single program Shakopee has to offer. It's going to help my time go faster and honestly just distract me from my own thoughts. And so the first program that I did or got accepted to, because I applied to a bunch of them, was the IFI program, which is Interchanged Freedom Initiative. And it's called something different today, but it is, I always call it the Jesus program. So
it's called Prison Fellowship Academy today.
Okay.
PFA. Mm-hmm.
So
Great program.
ultimately you study the Bible, kind of learn. I mean, they take you from square one, and I needed that, but I had never touched a Bible. I was kind of scared of it. It was not scared because I wasn't worthy of it, but just like it was such a big book. And what does it mean? And what do these names mean? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, it just was very confusing kind of. And also, where do you start? Because sure, you can start at the beginning, but that looks like a long book to read, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, and at that time, I didn't know there were different versions, you know? So once I learned about the version that's like, what is it? The NIV,
sure.
the normal way to read.
Mhm.
It was
Versus
very
King
easy.
James. She's saying versus King James, friends, which is
Yes,
kind of like Shakespeare.
yes, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
need Shakespeare. I'm like, what are they trying to say? So
Something a little easier to understand. They're all saying the same
yes,
thing, just a little different slang to it.
exactly. And we even did like a book on boundaries. And I'm like, of course I knew what the word boundary meant, but I was like, wow, I don't have any boundaries. You know, I mean, like we learned what boundaries with our parents would look like, boundaries, but all through how Jesus would look at it.
Mhm.
And that was awesome. I feel like everybody needs that class because I don't think anyone has boundaries. I mean, we're not taught that.
Yeah.
So
And
I
so that made an
ultimately
impact on.
loved it so much. I loved my teachers. We had counseling once a week, and I feel like every week I got stronger and better. And honestly, I hate to even admit this, but I really liked being in prison at that time because I was able to heal. I could feel myself healing through this,
Mm.
and no one was watching me. You know, I was able to just do it without the world or being on TV or, you know, where my parents had to deal with the news. Oh, your daughter was on the news and, you know, all of that horrible stuff. I learned to be so grateful that I got to heal through this.
Was there a Bible verse that jumped off the page for you?
Yeah, and this was strange. So once again, I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know verses. I did not know who Joyce Myers was, but I kept turning on my TV in prison and she was speaking on Genesis 50:20 every time I turn on the TV. And now today I think that is so cool that I kept hearing that as a repeat. Like I would say, okay, hi God, I get it, you know, but back then I didn't fully understand. So it was if you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, the saving of many lives, roughly. And now I just feel like, yeah, alcohol intended to harm me, worldly ways intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, the saving of many lives. And whether that means I'm talking to you or speaking to high schools or writing a book or doing other things, it's hopefully going to change somebody's mind about drinking and driving.
So you mentioned a little bit about talking to high schools. How are you giving back today because of your experience?
Yeah, I started right when I got out of prison. It was a goal of mine to speak to high schools because I was drinking in high school. I know a lot of high schoolers that drink. So um I thought maybe if I could talk at that mock car crash right before prom and just get it into their mind that I was a normal kid, just like them. I wasn't the bad kid. I wasn't the troublemaker. I wasn't anybody. I was just a normal high school girl that would drink and was trying to be cool like the rest of them. And granted, my accident did not happen when I was in high school. It was just,
Mhm.
it started there though. You know, really,
Yeah.
if you think about it, I'm sure I was drinking and driving in high school. I'm sure of it. I can't like specify one time, but it had to have been happening way back then. So,
Well, and I know
so I,
adults too, adults that we've
oh my
gone out
gosh,
with that are drinking and driving and oh, I had a big meal and oh, I'm fine. I can have more wine. And like you said, you had a sober driver and the sober driver thought you were okay, which is frustrating to me. But he didn't know.
yeah,
He wasn't with you. He didn't see how much you drank, and you obviously could carry it well. But it's ageless. It doesn't matter how old you
yeah,
are. It's
no,
ageless, and either your children can be victims of the accident, or your children could have caused the accident, or are adults, or this impacts everybody. This is a very important topic. And so, Sondra, if people want you to come and speak at their events, at their churches, at their schools about what happened to you and what the consequences were, is it okay if they reach you through our Him for Her ministries?
yes, I would love that.
So, friends, I want you to go to our website, Him for Her, HIM, number 4, Her Ministries. Go to the info page, fill out Sondra, Sondra D, Sondra, D, and mention that you'd like to be in touch with her to talk about an opportunity for her to come and speak and share her experience. I mean, we don't want to waste this. God is going to take good out of this horrendous, terrible situation. And you guys, my heart bleeds for the parents of the lost ones. But God can restore today here on earth what the enemy had intended for evil. And so let's give Sondra a chance to do that as well. And I hope and pray, Father God, that you will use her mightily in so many ways. And Sondra, how can we be praying for you?
Just pray that my life keeps going in the direction that it's supposed to. I try to just do the next best thing and the next right thing every day and make sense. And I truly, my dream would be to continue with something with this. I feel like this year I've just started saying yes to everything rather than like, nope, we don't need to talk about it. But God keeps knocking at my door saying, Sondra, people are wanting you to talk about it.
What words of advice do you have for our listeners today?
You are not invincible. Nothing bad was going to happen to me. And guess what? It happened to me. This is all of our actions have consequences,
Yes.
whether they're horrific like mine, or if they're, I mean, even if you only got a DWI, that's not only a DWI. That's, you very well could have killed somebody. There just wasn't anybody in your way at that time.
Absolutely.
Even if you had maybe not over the legal limit, but you're still not in your right mind. So if you got distracted by something, or I don't know, it just, to me, none of it is worth it. It's not worth the experience of going out that night. And we have so many options. There's Ubers, there's Lyfts, there's friends, family. There's, I think people even like will drive your car home for you.
I'm going to pray for you if I can. Father God, I just thank you for Sondra and for her coming on and sharing from her heart, God, this terrible, painful situation. But Lord, look what you have done in her life. Not only has she suffered, but you have restored her. Not only has she wanted to end her life, but you have given her life. And so, Father, I know that you are God of restoration and you can lift up any situation for your glory. And Father, if there's other people out there suffering because of vehicular homicide or anything that alcohol had induced in their family, Lord, I pray that you'll give them your peace and your hope. But God, it starts all with inviting you into their hearts. And would today be the day that they say, yes, Jesus, I want you to come into my life and restore me, restore our situation. And so, Father, I thank you for Sondra. I thank you for the opportunity for our listeners. And I pray you'll continue to move forward doing powerful things in her life. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Sondra.
Amen.
And I love you.
Thank
And
you.
I'm so thankful I got a
Oh,
chance
I love
to
you too.
baptize you and meet you in prison. Thank you for the time that you've given us today.
Thank you so much.